So change is good for business. We know this we know this in our mind. But have you ever noticed how you physically react to change? I've personally had a lot of change happen in my world and in my circle over the last few weeks, and I've had so many conversations about change. And one defining theme has just stood out. And it's this thought that I don't like change, or the thought of I can't handle change. I don't handle change well. I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me. And I find this really interesting because change is inevitable. It's like time. You can't stop it. You can't delay it. You can't put it on pause. You can't save it for later. It just happens. And today I want to talk to you about why you need to embrace it. How to improve or die is really what we're going to be talking about, and really three keys that you can harness change for a profitable and sustainable business. So, howdy everyone, my name is Leslie Hassler. I own Your Biz Rules Business Coaching, and I help service-based businesses grow and scale in a way that's profitable and sustainable, which means it's a heck of a lot easier and you actually have money left over at the end of the day, the week, and the month. So we're talking about change. Now, I think change is really interesting. I had a boyfriend in college once that said, most people fear change. I use it to do my laundry. Horrible joke, right? Horrible, but it's always stuck with me. And it has taken me a while to realize that at my very core, I am an agent of change. Now, I do it in a positive way, or as positive of a way as it can be done. Everybody has their own journals. Everybody has their own hurdles, their own journey to really go through when it comes to managing change. But if you really were to think about it, think about 20 years ago. Where would you be today if things hadn't changed? Now, I'm sure there's some things that are less than positive, not going to negate that, but chances are you wouldn't have opportunities, you wouldn't have relationships, you wouldn't have family members that would be here and that are here as a result of change. And I think it's really a timely topic. In fact, when we get into why is change good for business, the Harvard Business Review's latest issue, so probably the July-August issue, is all about adaptability and the ability for businesses to change and what really makes the difference. And here's the business case I'm going to give you for embracing change, being in that adaptive state of mind. And that is that the Harvard Business Review found that companies who not only embraced change, but where change was a part of the culture and a part of the strategic implementation in those companies, they outperformed, like the top 25% of the companies that they studied outperformed the bottom 25% 2 times in profits, meaning the companies that adapted change were more profitable, double the times, double the profitability of the companies that were horrible at implementing change. They also saw that those companies that embraced change grew 3 times faster than companies that were not able to embrace change. And that's kind of with our headline today. Like, it's the improve or die. It really is that if you are not changing, if you are not growing, then your business likely is in this slow, painful death that might take you 20 years to realize, but it's definitely not going to be a lot of fun along the way. So we need to change our relationship with change. We need to redefine it, if you will. Something that really states that we know change is going to happen one way or the other. We can't control that, but we can control us. We can control our approach, our philosophy, and what we do with change. Because if you don't develop a more positive relationship with change, you're going to find yourself always exhausted, always burned out, feeling like, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, being very unsettled in your business, being surprised by everything. And that negative state really puts you into a reactive state. And the positive relationship of change really puts you into a more strategic state. And so we're going to talk about three different keys, three different ways that you can really change your relationship with change, redefine it to be better and to serve your business in a better way so that you can actually take advantage of opportunities that come your way. You can take advantage of innovations that come your way. You become the leader in your industry, not the follower. And I'm really big on that. I believe in being the leader in your industry. So here's our first key. Okay, first key. And how do we change our relationship with a change? How do we become more adaptable? And that first key is that you've got to rewrite the story of your culture. Your culture needs to be one that can unite in purpose, that can offer clarity of direction, that basically states, if you think about it, it is like you are putting a flag post in the ground and you are saying, here is who we are, here's what we think about change, and here's what we do when it happens. That clarity, that direction, it can happen really universally. So it can happen across the team, or it can happen within the organization, like vertically within the organization. And when it happens in both ways, then everyone's on board. Everyone can drive change. And I think this is a really important concept, because one of the things about not just having your culture of change being a vertical, being from the owner down to, the entry level, if you will, in your business, but also having it go laterally, is you are implementing a strategy called, it just went out of my head. Distributed authority. Okay. So that's basically saying that we are going to enable, we are going to encourage, we are going to empower every employee to make change, as long as it aligns with the culture, as long as it aligns with the vision, with our purpose, with our values, all those elements of culture that are really important. This is a beacon. This is what calls people forward, if you will. It is what attracts great clients. It's what attracts great talent. And I've talked about the importance of having this before, but it just makes sure that everyone's on board. And here's the I don't know, the kicker is not maybe the best phrase, but I think the silver lining to it all is that when you've got a business whose culture can handle, embrace, capture, and cultivate change, then that translates personally as well. And when you've got that personal mindset that can embrace change, because heavens knows change happens in our personal lives as much as it does in our professional lives, you've got a more stable, more resilient, more healthy mental health, if you will, holistic people working for you. And that type of energy is contagious. It really works in kind of an upward spiral to the betterment of not just your team members on a personal level, but the business as a whole. So that's the first key, is really having a strong culture that adapts, embraces, and harnesses change to the betterment of everyone. Our second key, and this we kind of alluded to at the beginning, is when you're in this reactive state, you're always behind the 8 ball. In one of my conversations, a good friend of ours is getting a new job, and it's a great job, great advancement. He's so capable at doing it. But we were talking about change. And I said, really and truly, you have the opportunity with the position that you're in, is if this is change and being behind it, you can get out in front of it. When you're reactive, you're always feeling like you're behind the 8 ball. When you're strategic, it's more exciting. Like you can actually be energized by the change because you're driving it. You're moving it into a direction that you have intention with. You know why you're doing things. So all these questions about, what's going on and what the right decision is, and all that indecision that comes with being reactive in a change situation just falls away. And it's such a simple concept that's so not easy for people to do. All right. That's why I think I work a lot in this realm of getting people out of reaction and into strategic intention, so that they're the ones guiding the business. They're the ones I won't say you can control change, because you can't, but you can harness it, and you can really utilize it to move your organization forward in a way that you can't if you're still reactive. But here are a couple of considerations that you have when you start to think about becoming strategic with your attitude around change. One is you've got to be considerate of your capacity. Now, capacity can be mental capacity, it can be physical capacity, it could be fiscal capacity, risk capacity. I mean, there's so many ways to look at capacity, but it is one of those things that says, hey, is this change scalable? And that's a key concept, because if it isn't scalable, all the intention in the world isn't going to benefit you. So is this scalable? Do we have the capacity to grow? There are times when you should say now is not the time, because our capacity, our foundations are weakened, are still recovering from our last big growth or last big change that we implemented. And we need to allow for people to recharge. I've mentored so many businesses and saying, this is the right change. It's just not the right change right now. We need to give your team the ability to come back and get re-energized. So noticing that's why I think the mental capacity is just important as your physical capacity, your production capacity, all of those considerations. Also, be thinking about strategy. Not every change has the same kind of strategic implementation, right? Sometimes there's just better ways to execute something, even if the old way that you executed before worked. So I think we have to have this ability to see past what we've done in the past and look at the situation as it is today and make a choice, a strategic intention that really helps us succeed or gives us the best opportunity for success in a situation. And then at the end of the day, it's the ability to reprioritize. I think 2020 was an incredible lesson in the ability to reprioritize, and the amount of change that happened in our economy, in our global world, and within countries was a lightning rod. And it required so many people to reprioritize. But I will tell you, I was in a nonprofit organization to where we were really doing the dance of, are we in person, are we virtual, that back and forth. And it felt like every other month we were having to reprioritize what we were doing. Now, it can be really challenging to feel like that you're accomplishing something, that it can be really challenging to feel like you're gaining momentum when you have to reprioritize. But at times, you have to reprioritize. And so going back to that culture, right? Our first step, if we're doing change and we've got this strong, clear culture that can help guide us, then we can choose, if you will, the higher priority, right? And our higher priority at that time for that organization was meeting our members where they are, where they were that day, recognizing that that could change and being okay to change with it. All right. So that is a real key, especially in moments of not volatility, but really just rapid changing environments, to where you're having to choose from a whole range of potential scenarios, is understanding that sometimes you're going to have to reprioritize when you figure out that you're not, your action was scenario A, but really this is scenario D. And so that ability to be flexible is super key. Now, how are you going to do this? This is really where I guess more of the nuts and the bolts come into play. We rely on data Data doesn't lie, right? Numbers don't lie. So relying on data to help support maybe some of those intuition things. Sometimes that we have to rely on that intuition, all right? Sometimes our intuition is stronger than the data, and we just can't prove why, but we feel strongly enough about it to be able to do that. But also listen to your team, listen to your clients, listen to yourself, listen to the little red flags, listen. And when you listen though, you got to close this. Right. And that's the hardest thing I think for entrepreneurs and business owners to do some days, is to close their mouth and allow for the listening to be what's being said to be heard. I think at the end of the day, and it kind of goes back to leaning into your culture, but when you're trying to implement change, and maybe you do have some KPIs, is understanding that you're attached to the result, not to the process, or not to the method, not to the strategy. Okay, so that helps us also just be able to adapt and reprioritize as we go through. Our third key in really embracing change, harnessing change so that you can have a profitable and sustainable business, is to implement iterative learning, if you will. We're coming out of an age of knowing, KNOWING, right? And knowing really does hinder learning. And I kind of counsel the owners and entrepreneurs in this way, is that yes, for a lot of time, long time, you knowing what to do was really important. But as you build team, as you grow and scale your business, knowing can be your detriment. Learning keeps you adaptable. And so if you can't always see that your job is to always be learning and rarely be knowing, you'll approach so many things so differently in your business. And your business, your team will approach it differently as well. So having that flexibility, if you will, to be wrong, to fail, to learn so that the next thing you do is that much more successful, is really a huge key when it comes to harnessing change. The more comfortable you become, the quicker that you can fail, the quicker you will be able to succeed. And that has proven true time and time again. But if you have an emotional attachment to being right, your business isn't going to change. It's not going to adapt. It's not going to find innovation in ways that truly lead to a more profitable business. So that's it today, guys. I hope that was helpful. I hope that got you thinking about a few things, and really starts to get you down this road of being able to change and embrace it as an entrepreneur. So I'm Leslie Hassler, your Biz Rules. Look, if you're looking for a path, a way, an action plan on how to grow and scale your business, I'd invite you to take our Scaling Rich quiz. And you can take that over at the yourbizrules.com website, or by going directly to Scaling Rich. It's a 10-minute quiz. It's so super easy. It's going to ask you a little bit of questions about where you are in your business, and it's going to offer up a pretty tailored plan on what you need to be thinking about, what pitfalls you need to avoid, and what areas of your business are likely needing more attention right now so that you can grow and scale in a way that's profitable and sustainable. So be sure to take our quiz. Let me know what you get. I always love hearing what people find out that they are, where they are on their journey. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you're doing well. And until next time, I'm Leslie Hassler with Your Biz Rules Business Coaching.